That's a Shame is brought to you by the people who support us over at patreon.com/shamecity.
If you have $1,
$2.
$1 to spare, join us again at patreon.com/shamecity. Please.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
Hello and welcome to another new episode of your favourite podcast and mine, That's a Shame. I'm Isaac, and I'm joined, as always, every week, this happens, or every fortnight, I guess, on our current schedule, by my dear co-host, Delkin. How's it going, Delk?
It's me.
Yeah,
and we're back.
we're
It's huge news, isn't it?
111 days since our last episode. Imagine that. That's a good number.
22nd of November.
That is mad. And how has the world changed for you since
Well,
then?
I mean, we're both a year older since then. So we're a year wiser.
Was it over a year ago? What?
No.
You just mean like we're in a new year?
Yeah, both.
I don't follow those.
Both our birthdays have been since then, is what I mean.
I suppose so.
And we've entered the year of our Lord 2022.
Huge one.
It's been pretty huge. It's been a strange time for the world, hasn't it?
How do you sum it up, maybe in a poem?
The time since then has not been great.
Okay.
Welcome to episode 208.
Oh, okay. So you're sort of positioning us as the solution to all of that. Like we're putting like a capstone on all the badness.
It's more like, it's less like we're a solution, and it's more like, our time has come. Things have gotten that bad. They've called the Batman out of retirement again.
Okay. Well, I don't consider myself old enough to have retired in this.
But
Batman
you
analogy.
are. You are getting quite old now.
I'm 45 this year. It's the big 45. It's going to be huge. We're so thrilled to be back, aren't we? I'm thrilled.
I'm actually really excited to be back.
Yeah,
I've missed
been a
it.
while. Now,
which is an interesting thing to say about something that is the
optional.
absence of which has been entirely down to us. But,
why haven't you let us record for 111
I haven't
days?
let us record because you've just not really been available to me, and I don't mean in terms of schedule. I just mean emotionally.
How far away from me are you at this moment?
Well, Mark and I were talking about this earlier.
Mark, who I've not seen since moving out.
No, well, this is it. I can continue to call him friend and flatmate Mark. You're only allowed to call him friend Mark.
Well, I wouldn't even go that far. Just Mark. I deleted
Mark
him from my
used
phone.
to know.
Yeah.
Is that, it's weird that 2 floors away may as well be another part of London. You may as well be the other side of the river. Although we did see each other last weekend, which was
true. Nice. We did. And we went on a great cultural excursion to go and see some of your favorite video game soundtrack. It was Cuphead, and it was a very international affair.
It was a very international affair, and may I say, it was a very well attended affair.
Oh my goodness! The Game Music Festival always is, because everyone's heard of it every year, and the whole thing went very smoothly. No, it was very good. It was very good. We had a lovely time, and it's just things like that have been filling these 111 days. We just keep seeing Cuphead over and over, and how are we going to find time to record?
And it's always on a Sunday, right, when we would be recording.
Annoying.
It's so strange.
And we've asked them, guys, will you do a different? No, they won't. They won't do a different day. They can't.
They refuse. The Game Music Festival, it coincides with the Lord.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So it's Sunday.
Well, he started it. So, would you say are the boys back in town, or is that premature?
I think we're just in the right space to say that we are back in town.
Okay. Or maybe approaching back in town. The scene, act 2 of a movie, right? You've been introduced to your normal characters. I call them the norm char. And then they need the screenwriters. They're sitting there. They're like, we're losing the audience at this point. They've met Betsy. They've had the funny scene with the skunk and the dog who fall in love. We need to throw something new into the mix. And then it hard cuts to a character. Often they'll have long hair.
You can't see them yet. It's just the road and spinning wheels.
Yeah. I was thinking that, or sometimes it will be them in a madcap situation. They're sort of in the middle of doing something strange. They'll just be in a bar fight or something. Yeah, or robbing a bank. And the music dum, dum, and you're oh, who's this? And then they have they have sort of their own hero's journey thing, right? The call comes to them. The call for action, the initiating, whatever it's called, the inciting incident. They'll see a photo of someone and be like, I gotta get myself back to G-Town and they come back and meet the main characters. That's how I see us at the moment. Do you agree? Yes or no?
So, I mean, I think that this episode is that moment.
Yeah. Okay.
And so kind of in a way, what we're saying is that after this, like we're back in town. This is us arriving in town.
We're the boys are en route to town is really where we're at the moment.
Yeah. And then like by tomorrow when we're like streaming,
then we're firmly in.
That's it. We're firmly we've arrived.
Yeah, I see that in a big way. And does this mean, can we exclusively announce a return to Big Bad Books as well, do you think?
Yeah, no, 100%. So.
Because I tell you what, Ready Player 2 is the gift that keeps on giving, and by giving I mean more chapters.
It's not getting any better.
It's not getting any more finished, that's for sure. One of the potential downsides of this format that we created for Big Bad Books is that books are really long. Like they do go on for quite some time. And I wonder if maybe we need to start like 2 chapters per ep, 10, like maybe the rest of the book.
This feels somewhat like, I don't want to call you a coward on air.
What would be the cowardice here?
Well, it's just that, you're not brave enough to approach it one at a time anymore.
I suppose.
You're feeling sort of spiritually weak.
I've been cucked by Ernest's prose, I suppose, is one of the problems.
But I think what it is that you're just trying to, based on our conversations last weekend, run us full steam ahead into me reading Atlas Shrugged.
2023 is the Ayn Rand season on Big Bad Books. So guess who's doing the reading?
Doing that.
It's Declan.
Refuse.
Now we've got one hell of a show for you today, and we thought, we're coming back. We better prepare a huge amount of stuff in advance. Those episodes where sometimes we've been away for like 3-4 months, and we have a whole,
like the last
one. We prepare like a whole song and dance sometimes, semi-literally. We've got something like that. Not quite that, because we didn't want to be derivative, but we've got something a bit like that for today. What have you brought?
Well, I thought that we'd probably do, because so far, we've had a bit of an update, haven't we?
Yeah.
But we've not.
Is there anything else to update people on, by the way?
Well, I think, there probably is. Like,
started a business.
We've approached it with kind of our usual sort of whimsical, detached approach.
I love that about us.
But there's been a nearly 4 months.
It's crazy
in between the last time that we spoke to our wonderful listeners, who seemingly have still been listening.
Yeah, our download figures are up, actually. It turns out the fewer episodes we do, like the more people,
it drives the prices up.
Weird. That's
we should probably have at least a small chat about, some of the specific, like what's gone on in that time.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's been all sorts. But then, after that, I've brought, I don't know about you.
No,
I've brought one
content
tweet.
Oh, wow. Okay. I brought one Wikipedia article. So between us,
that's content.
A new way of browsing the web. With your ears. Let your ears do the browsing. That could be our new tagline.
We bring to you the things you could and maybe have already found yourself.
That's a huge service we provide. Well, okay. You've mentioned there's a bunch of things that have happened in these 4 months, and I've got to say I'm not aware of them.
Have you not had anything happen to you?
No, stasis, mate. Stasis.
Have you just been sat?
I've mostly been, that time when the tortoise crawls under the cupboard, under the stairs, and just sort of sits there for like 8 months of the year. That's me. That's Isaac. Cocooned up there, just like a tortoise in its chrysalis.
Cocooned for 2/3 of the year.
When they hibernate, they turn into a fluid, like a butterfly. No,
that is weird. That has reminded me of like, because there's this thing that goes around every now and then about how like we apparently don't know how eels mate.
We don't, as in a species.
Yeah.
No human knows that.
We just
can't be true.
We've not got an idea. And I always thought that must not be true. But then
you could just watch, surely.
But apparently we can't. We can't see.
They won't do it if you're watching.
No,
they shy.
It's like, how. I'm actually not going to say that. I've decided to.
Wow.
I've decided to spare you.
That's a new season 4 piece of maturity. We love to see that. Clicks.
I've grown. All I'm going to do is I'm going to message it to you privately.
Oh, good. Okay. But, as long as I still get the content.
But I was reading a thing the other day about how we were entering the kind of 3 days of pandas being horny.
Oh, wow. Is that, hang on, is that like a year? Can we predict that?
Yeah, like they have like 3 days, or at the very, if not like, if they're not like all on the same schedule, then apparently, you know,
most of them.
That is it. Like they have 3 days a year. That's it. You get in, you get out, and you hope. But because of this, so there was a really interesting bit kind of further down, which is that we don't know how long a panda pregnancy lasts. Ooh. And the like length is like it's somewhere between like 70 and 120 days.
That's a big margin of error.
And apparently it's just because even once like the egg is fertilized, it doesn't implant in the wall of the uterus straight away.
Wow,
so you just can't know. But it's just like it is amazing to me that there's things like this that we still don't know.
Yeah.
I'm always like, someone somewhere's got to have that on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I was at a party recently, and there was a friend of mine who's now a doctor there. And whenever I'm drinking, whenever I'm drunk, and there is a doctor there, I just want to ask them so many questions about how, like medicine and stuff. And the one that I traditionally have asked for years is like, is it true that no one knows how anesthetic works? Like the function of most general anesthetics is not understood. Yeah. And this time, I've clearly asked him this before, because he sort of sighed and was like, I'll tell you something.
Sorry, Isaac, I do remember you. Yes.
Oh yeah, okay. You're this guy. I'm actually busy.
Just threw a scotch and coke over you and walked away.
He answered that they found out like 2 weeks ago prior to this party. There was apparently some paper like published that finally unlocked some like, I mean, it was never true that they completely didn't know. Obviously, those things are always like a massive overstatement. But there was some missing.
just wow. Every anesthetist just closing their eyes and pushing.
Here goes nothing.
Pushing in the plunger.
Just like whispering in the ear of patients like a hypnotist, like, I'll give you 50 quid if you play along. But yeah, apparently that one is now solved, or at least a big step of it is closer to being solved.
I mean, I'm not surprised that we weren't fully sure, because there was that. I remember when that film came out, Awake or something, that was about someone who like is conscious during their own surgery or something. That one of the stats that was on the poster that I then looked into and seemed to be like broadly accurate was that like 1 in 700 people wakes up.
No, that's too. That's too many. That's not right. I don't like that.
So many people.
Yeah. I'd go so far as to say most people.
I'd go so far as to say that's. I would certainly go so far as to say that that's too many.
Yeah, it's too many for sure. What would be your ideal number? Like 1 in 800.
1 in 700.
I'm not very ambitious.
Well, speaking of this, one of the things that has happened in the meantime is that old Declan here was in the hospital because
dodgy ducks brush with death.
We had planned a big return.
Yeah,
a couple of weeks ago. We were going to hit you hard with a huge. We had guest stars. We had DeltQuest. We had all sorts.
Which we are going to do. Don't worry.
No, it's over now.
No, it's one of those. It's a movable feast.
Past. It's like it couldn't be done again. But instead, what happened was I had to go into the hospital because I was sort of just when you're what I like to call just sort of normal sick.
Oh yeah, normal sick.
When you're just like you're ill.
Yeah, just like generalized illness.
In a way that you might expect to every now and then be ill.
Yeah,
with
like
nothing.
Malaise.
Because like normally, you only would head to the hospital if there's something going on where you're like, oh, that's a bit.
I think the rule is you should only go to the hospital if there's something sticking out of you.
Yeah, well, I remember speaking to somebody when I worked at the pharmacy who came in and said that she was a bit worried because, like, and I'll never forget that the phrase she used was like, I'm very aware of my bones, was the phrase she used.
Wow,
and I was like, you
weird.
should never, ever
you shouldn't have to think about them.
As soon as you know you have bones, there's something wrong.
That's game over. You've lost the game. That's the skeleton's pact, is that you never have to think about
throw
what it's
yourself
doing for you.
Straight in front of the nearest bus.
Terrible.
No, but yeah, like you're right. Like normally, something's got to be coming out of you,
or something crucial that should be is not.
Yeah, or something's got to be recognizably the wrong shape.
Yeah. I feel like we are very indoctrinated, given our National Health Service, to not go to hospital ever and never use any of the services.
Yeah, it's weird because, you'd think that would be more the case in a place where you didn't get it for free, but we are sort of our condition.
They've got a fiscal pressure not to, and we've got a real social pressure.
We've got the stiff upper lip pressure.
Yeah, the toxic masculinity.
Well, that's fine because the NHS is all being sold off, so we won't
Thank fuck. That's a load off.
We'll get to experience the other side of life.
Good.
So, but I consulted a doctor mainly because I figured I would probably need some time off work, and you should have at least attempted to speak to a doctor if you're going to do that, or else they start to ask questions.
Ugh.
And they were like, yeah, it turns out you're ill, we're going to give you medicine. That's the classic doctor experience.
They love that,
as far as I'm concerned.
They go, it's kind of like old hat at this point. Doctor chat.
What she said was, get yourself a thermometer, and if your temperature goes above 38, like probably head to A&E.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I got the medicine, I got the thermometer, and then I went home and I used the thermometer and I was at like 38.5. I was like, well, let's give the medicine a chance to have a go first before we just sort of give in. Giving it, the good British try.
Yeah.
And then it got to sort of like the second round of medicine and it was like 40. And I was like, okay, well, that's
too high.
I know that's bad. You shouldn't be seeing the 4.
Your head should never touch the 4s.
So I went down to I got an Uber. And I always because there are 3 times in my life, and this is the first for myself, where I've had to get an Uber to A&E.
Mm-hmm.
And I do always wonder, like, when they see that that's your journey, like,
do you think they just hold their breath the whole time?
Just think
that's what I would do.
Oh, come on. Like, they're like, because I think that they would rather turn up and see you sort of like holding your arm in a big like
sling. They want it. You want to have like a comic book or a cartoon injury.
But like I was like just a guy standing there with a bag, and they're just like, "Oh, that could be anything." Hell, here we go.
Not just as a brief addition to your story. The one time I had to go to A&E in an Uber was with kidney stone pain, where it was like so painful that I was throwing up and couldn't drink anything.
Oh yeah,
so I finally had to like go along, and it was. We fortunately don't live that far away from a hospital, right? Like it's not.
Did you go?
Yeah. Big up.
What a huge place.
Very big, very, very powerful. For some reason, it was like the most set of traffic accidents had happened, and it took so long. And my resolve. I remember the moment, like almost like watching it back as a film that I'm in.
Yeah.
I remember the moment that my resolve shattered. As like the 12th light in a row turned red in front of us, and I just like burst into tears. I was like, "Mate, I'm so sorry. I'm in so much pain. It's not." And I was like, "It's not contagious." And at the end, he was just like, "My friend, it's fine. It's fine. Just lie down. Just lie down. You'll be fine. He was honestly. I wish I'd like. Had the presence of mind to like take his name or leave him like a huge tip, because he was just so nice.
The nicest person.
He was just so nice. He like helped me out of the car to A&E. Anyway, carry on.
My guy. I mean, I wasn't making as much of a fuss, but I didn't have as much of a so he just sort of silently and dutifully got us to where I needed to go. Then I got into A&E, and it was weird because they had a new system in place where unless you're the patient, like you can't be in there.
Oh yeah.
So when I walked in, I thought it was much busier than it turned out to be, because as I went through the sort of like foyer, there was just like 100 people just sort of stood waiting, and it turned out these were all people from various parts of the department who were standing having a cigarette. And I went in, and I had sort of they give you like a little preliminary check, 2 like triage checks that weren't in a room; they were just in the waiting room. And then I got this piece of paper that said that when I checked in, my heart rate was 200 BPM.
No,
and I was
that's too high.
That's not good. Like, because I wondered, because she said, okay, they'll give you blood tests and an ECG. And I was like, an ECG? That's a funny thing to give me for
a fever. Where my head is.
And then I like read through this piece of paper. I was like, oh no, fuck. So I had the ECG first, and then I had the bloods taken. And let me tell you, I've never in my life had as much blood taken from my body as then.
Did you like it or no?
There were about pardon?
Did you like it? Did you mind it?
I don't give a fuck. It doesn't bother me at all. I actually find it like quite interesting to watch.
You've always said you feel like you have too much blood.
I feel like I'm full of it.
Yeah.
I'm looking for, exciting ways to lose weight that don't involve exercise. And this is this is one of them.
Wow, yeah.
I'm going to try and be like trepanned every other day. But they had like vials, and then they had these things that looked like miniature wine bottles that already were half full with fluid.
Ooh.
Which apparently are for like blood cultures for like specific things.
Wow.
But it was so odd. It was like, when you buy or if like in like an expensive hotel, they have like tiny bottles of alcohol. Yeah. It was like having one of those, and they just sort of shoved it into the
lovely
into the cannula in my arm. And then I was sat waiting, and a guy called me in, and he was almost like a sitcom doctor, this guy, because he was the master of that face that I feel like doctors have lost the ability to realize that they're doing, which is that they're confused, which is always concerning.
Yeah.
And he just did not hide that at all. So he like called me in, and he was like,
Ooh.
Yeah, like, and he was clearly holding my ECG up.
He was clearly Googling on his phone.
Yeah,
your symptoms.
Well, and we have previous of having these sorts of doctors in my family, because obviously when they started looking at my heart, and then they start asking about kind of family history, and my dad about 2 years ago now had a pacemaker fitted. But like one of the appointments he had during that, I remember he called me immediately afterwards. To like, because he knew that I, out of all people, would appreciate the story, which was that it was one of those ones where they're kind of threading something up your artery from the wrist into your heart.
I'm not about that.
No, I know. And they were threading up, and they were sort of like pushing, and then it sort of like stopped.
Oh no.
It just wasn't going. And the guy looked a bit confused, and my dad went, well, what's wrong? And he went, well, we should be able to go a bit further, but like, it's not going. And my dad said, well, what do we do now? And the guy said, well, we can just force it through. And I went, okay. And then he went, but that could cause a catastrophic bleed out that would lead to your immediate death.
Wow.
Went, oh,
yeah.
Well,
I guess on balance.
Maybe not that one. Maybe the one that doesn't involve that. And he went,
if we're voting,
okay. and that seemed to be this guy who was stood there kind of visibly looking so confused, looking at this woman going, are you... The first question he asked me was, are you over 50? Which is an amazing thing to ask.
Wow.
Right? Given that A, like, you must have seen my file, and B, like, I'm not the best looking guy of all time, right? And the kids I teach have once before accused me of looking more than 50, but no. I don't feel like as a doctor you should assume.
I feel like he's done you there.
And he sort of ran through all the other risk factors, and he just sort of went, And I said, well, like, what is the issue? And he went, oh, it's not really an issue. And I was like, what? Like, don't fuck about. Like, you don't call me in here confused and ask me a bunch of questions because there's no issue. Like, what's going... He said, you've got something called ECG changes. And I said, what does that mean? And let me tell you, I've never asked this question... And it received less of an answer for as long a time. He was like, yeah, basically it's like there's something wrong. And I was like, yeah, but like what? Like, what is wrong? Tell me like how it's wrong. Or he was like, yeah, it's not good. Like
it's not right.
It could, he said it could be totally normal. Or it could be very serious. So if you just go and sit back in the waiting room.
I'd be furious.
I was like, right. Anyway, we'll probably get you another one. And he went, anyway, and we'll wait for your bloods. I said, okay. I went into the waiting room. I sat down. And it's always a balancing act because you want to be seen when you're in a waiting room. And it was quite a busy waiting room still. Yeah. But also, once you're seen, like, you've got sort of I've been seen privilege.
Yeah.
And that was the third time I'd been called up in about 15 minutes.
People starting to look at you.
Yeah. And so you come back out to find another seat. And like half the people are looking at you and are kind of like, fuck it, no, like this guy's getting seen straight away. And the other half are looking at you and like, this guy's dying.
So there's a mixture of pity and fury.
Yeah. And I went and I sort of managed to find a seat. I sat down and here, Declan? I was like, yeah. And he didn't say anything. He just walked over to a door that I had not seen, that above it had the big sign that said X-rays. I was like, well, that's not good. Like, that's not why I came in. I came in thinking I just had a really bad fever. Like, what's gone?
It turns out it could be anything with any part of your body.
Yeah, it really did.
Now we're checking bones.
so he took me in. I had a chest X-ray, and then I went and sat down again, and I waited 2 hours, and there was nothing. And then after 2 hours, they were like, it looks all fine. We're probably going to send you home. We're just going to do one more test. And then they did the one more test, which was another ECG. And they said, you're going to be here
for and by here we mean the morgue. If you'd like to go and lie down now, you'll save us the trouble of really lugging your 50-year-old corpse.
You'd really be doing us a solid if you could just go down there.
Now, did at this point, when they told you that news, did your life sort of start flashing before your eyes? Did you wonder what, like, if you'd written your will, like what you were going to leave me?
I'll leave you. I was wondering if my family would let you keep enough that I'd pay back what I already owe you. But it was more that I weirdly, and again, like this is not sort of like a necessarily massively original observation. I didn't really kind of care while I was in there. I didn't
when you feel much. Is it because you already feel shit?
Yeah, I felt like shit, and I was just like, look, either it is really bad or it's not really bad. I'm in the right place. I'm very, very tired. I haven't got the time.
It is interesting how quickly, like, we all have like a biological imperative to want to carry on living for the most part, absent mental health conditions. But when you feel so terrible, it so quickly becomes like, nah.
just
let something new happen other than this feeling.
I'm going tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. Well, at least that means I don't need to do Wednesday.
Because I remember, like, so specifically when you're like a kid and you see this trope in fiction of like old people being like, "It's okay, son. It's my time." Yeah. I'm just being like, no, you would never think that. You would surely never ever be happy to be like, yeah, I'm done. I'll pop off now. And yet, as soon as you got a headache for 10 minutes, you're like, yeah, it's probably fine.
Yeah, no, it really is like that of just like, going in, you're thinking, oh God, I really hope it's nothing bad. Like, I really hope it's nothing bad. And then even in the 2 hours when I was waiting for sort of like chest X-ray results and stuff like that, I was thinking like, oh, I do hope that it's not this. Like, I just can't. But then as soon as they were like, you need to come like back here, like we're going to have to do another test, I was like, well, I get to lie down. Like, that's new. I don't have to sit in the waiting room anymore. And the fundamental vibe for the next sort of 24 hours nearly was like, yeah, like, you're probably fine. Like, you are probably fine. It's just that the other option is you've been dying for months.
And it's really coming to its crescendo.
And we just sort of need to make sure that it's not that.
Yeah.
And every doctor who came in did the same thing of like, number one, asking what was going on. And I was like, you know what's going on. Like, please just...
It's almost like they're trying to like trick you into telling them. It's like, well, we know, but like, what would you say?
Like a police interview technique. It's just like... Well, so basically I was taking all these hard drugs. Oh, fuck. Like, there he is. Get this man out of here. And then sort of going, so what it is you've got these ECG changes. And every time I said, now, would you be able to tell me, like, what are those? Like, what does that mean?
Chord sequence.
And every time they just went, it's what it means is, and like, tell me what it means rather than what it is. And I was like, I just want it, like, please. I told you last week about the doctor who came in, and this must have been like 4:30 a.m, who came in, said, Declan, is it? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, we're back in a second, and then disappeared for 40 minutes.
Nice.
And then eventually, after I sent someone to look for her, came back in, pretended like nothing had happened, who decided to examine me. And then then wanted to like look down the back of my throat, couldn't see that well, and said, okay, I'm just going to go get a tongue depressor left the room, came back 5 minutes later, said, okay, I haven't been able to find one. Just hold it down with your finger.
Wow.
Which,
the dignity.
One hell of a...
Imagine if you died in that moment.
Like
squashing your own tongue.
I may as well have.
Something in me died in that moment.
So they eventually the next day at some point moved me to a ward that, as I said again, it seemed initially like it was a really positive sort of thing.
Yeah.
In that I was in a real bed. That was quite nice. And it seemed like a more positive place to be. Like when you're just sort of out the back of A&E, there is a sort of vibe of like, you could just go.
You're already
any
in
moment,
the bins.
like you could go. Yeah. This is what they're here for. Whereas, you move to a bed, and there were some other guys in there who were kind of
bunch of alive
just sort
guys.
of either side of my age who got discharged within about an hour of me being there for what sounded like, because I was very nosy and listening, pretty much the same thing as me. And so I was like quite positive, even though the guy opposite me was as old as time itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then they brought in a man who immediately died.
I mean, that feels like that has the energy of when Monica in Friends starts at that restaurant and no one respects her, so she hires Joey to fire him straight away. It's like the hospital staff want to remind you that this isn't all plain sailing.
Don't get comfy, you
like
fucking...
the vibe in Ward 4 is perked up a bit. Send in one of the dyers.
Yeah.
Oh, hello everyone. We're having
It's like they've had it too good for too long in there. Send in one of the worst, who immediately died. And I would have not really known. I'd have assumed he'd just been discharged.
Yeah.
Because I sort of fell asleep after they brought him in. And I woke up what turned out to be 45 minutes later. And they were sort of wheeling him out. And he was statuesque, with a look of horror on his face. It looked less like he died of natural causes and more like he'd been basilisked to death.
Maybe that was what was wrong.
But thank God I was asleep.
Yeah.
And I was just I was just kind of stuck there for a much longer time than I think I needed to be, in that they were just all doing tests to make sure that I wasn't dying, which is a really funny thing because obviously in terms of the care you need, I had a really bad fever, which is not nice, but you can just kind of sweat it out in your own bed. It's not, you don't have to be in hospital for that. And so in a way, the staff are sort of a bit he doesn't need as much attention as, there's an old man who's had a fall, or there's, the man who is dying and
the man who is dead.
The guys who are just bleeding all over the gaff. But then on the same hand, there's this idea of well, also this person may have been dying for months. Yeah. So we have to just be really gentle. Every time I was what's going on? They're just oh, they're just running tests. And then when the doctor comes in, I was like, what test were you running, by the way? And they're going, we were running a test to see if you've been having heart attacks for
over and over again.
We're running a test to see if your heart is dying. And I was like, oh, okay.
Cool, yeah, I'll just sit here, love.
Yeah.
You got a Twix or something to tide me over.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just get back to my book.
Yeah.
It's all right. I'll just, don't worry, don't mind me.
Goodness.
One thing that was good that I've never had before that, I can't recommend enough if you can get your hands on the stuff.
Oh no.
And it's very it's very low key. It's just IV paracetamol.
Oh really? No, I've never had that.
Because obviously for a fever, that's one of the really good things. And they were giving it to me in tablet form for so long. And then there was sort of a change of shift, and I think some people got confused. I didn't have any for 6 hours, and I could feel myself getting hot again. So I was like, hey, am I allowed? Because they'd stopped one of the other things I was on. And so I didn't know if they would stop this as well. And I was like, am I allowed anymore? And they sort of looked like, oh my God, yes. And this nurse came and she went, which could do IV instead. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. Yeah. And I had the sort of saline drip pretty much the whole time I was there. I was just fluids.
Yeah.
And that takes forever and makes no noticeable difference, although I'm sure it must do. The IV paracetamol, they plug it into you. And
can you
within
feel
5 minutes
happening?
It's done and you feel better. That's it.
Powerful,
it was so insane. I was just oh, okay. And they put it in and then I was I feel like I could go home. I feel absolutely fine.
For this heart death.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. In classic, to sort of like round it off, like they eventually decided I wasn't dying immediately, so they let me out. They were
Hooray!
Like, yeah, sure, you can go, which was good news. And they said like, but you do have to come back for another of these tests. I was like, when's that going to be? Even 2 to 3 weeks. And then I got a letter about a week later that said, we're going to give you a phone call at the end of April.
Wow, that got triaged down the
and path. I was like, like, again, it's that same thing of, well, I'm glad that it doesn't feel urgent, but I'm also somewhat like, you did all make it sound like it probably should be.
It's quite weird, isn't it?
So there you go. Like maybe I'm fine, guys. For the most part,
you're here, right? Like, that's the main thing.
Exactly. That's the main thing. And if I'm suddenly not, just think good things.
You'd want me to carry on, wouldn't you?
Oh, 100%.
Would you want me to replace you with a different co-host, or just take it solo from now on?
No, what I want you to do is I'd want you to go down to just like once a month.
Yeah.
And instead of it being, I want you to sort of write each one as a script, and then I'll just be text to speech.
Oh, huge. That's a big effort, though. But I mean, okay, I'm assuming there's some kind of like stipend being willed to me to like tide me over. Because those text to speech things are quite expensive.
Well, like all the profits of any of those would go to you.
All of them. That's amazing. That's
you wouldn't have to like put any towards, like the Declan Foundation.
Oh, fine. Like I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
The Declan Foundation for possible heart death.
The
mysterious ailments.
Possible heart death and possible just unhealthy lifestyle. They split the money evenly.
Well, look, speaking of unhealthy lifestyles, I've prepared a little piece of content for us today. A little content nugget only. I guess
don't use that word.
A little content chunk. Is there a portmanteau of chunk and nugget that we can make, or is it going to be offensive?
You cannot say the word chugget. You cannot say the word chugget.
What about nunk? Anything there?
That does feel offensive.
I guess what we're doing today is providing people just a little taster session of what That's a Shame's all about. It's about sometimes stories about nearly dying. It's about sometimes weird things we found online.
You're not.
No, it is about that.
No, because you said sort of like, you said it in a way that implied that wouldn't necessarily have been a shame.
No, it would have been a shame. That's what I'm saying. We cast our umbrella pretty wide to mix a metaphor.
Right. Okay. Good. No, but I just wanted to make sure, because obviously you would have.
If you'd have died, I'd have been there at the funeral to say that's a shame, like pointing at the body.
And I thank you, because someone needs to.
And it would have brought great comfort to the whole of your family, I'm sure. Like I could maybe have said it. I could have like shaken hands with each and been like, "That's a shame."
You could have sort of got out your phone and played the song.
But I'd play a really somber version on the organ while they bring your body up the aisle, just like they definitely do in funerals. That'd be really, really weird. I think either way, like live or die, we should try and make this funeral thing happen. We should maybe film that like with a dummy corpse or something. Find that old man that died and see if he'd be willing to let me play.
Just out of interest, does it have to be mine? Or like
it does. It has to be, because I've already ordered the portrait where you're like looking happy and
this is an idea you've had for a while. Okay,
cool. Yeah, I've been working on it. There's a jigsaw in the party bags.
You don't waste time.
I have found a phenomenon. Now, it's not a new one, but it's one that is very pertinent. It's very within our remit as a show. And it's one that I feel, I don't know, it might be time to come back to. One of the trends I've been reading about with, the youth of today.
Yeah, too well. I teach.
Apparently they reject a lot of this millennial kind of minimalism of things like, the AirPod design and things like, just sleek colors. There's a journey back to mixing fabrics and textures.
I will say that I do agree with this in some way. Like I do hate when logos get super minimalized.
Well, to the point that they're just one shape only.
Yeah, where they're all just like one font or like shape. I agree. I think is always
and when words get minimalized to the point they're just taking out vowels at random. Like
exactly.
We bang that drum sometimes.
Like the Dylan Moran like joke about people going to a bar that's called Umlaut, except it's not called Umlaut. It's just 2 dots above an O that isn't there.
That is a good idea. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for this. And what I'm wondering is maybe this kind of like proto-analog direction that we're going in might be fertile ground, and I use that word advisedly, for the resurgence of this trend. I'd like to introduce you to something called Toothing. Toothing as in the the white bones in the mouth.
I remember them very fondly.
Toothing. I've sort of taken extracts from the Wikipedia page on this. The way I found it was I was just looking, as I do. I have a bookmark for just the list of hoaxes on Wikipedia that I read for amusement every
day.
Yeah,
of course.
First thing when I wake up. And toothing was originally a hoax claim. That's important. I can't underline that enough.
So
it was started as a hoax. Right. And the idea was that Bluetooth enabled phones, or given the time that this was, it was like 2004 or something, PDAs, remember those, were being used to arrange random sexual encounters perpetrated as a prank.
PDA, public display of affection?
No, PDA back then, it was like personal digital assistant. It was like those people that had, remember those little styluses? They were right dickheads mostly.
Yeah,
those people.
It was a sort of like naughty's version of the yuppie Filofax.
Yeah. What were they called? Palm Pilot or something like that.
Fuck off.
And then the BlackBerry that came after was kind of in the PDA vibe. Anyway, the hoax was created by these two guys. One of them seems to be called Ste, just STE. So I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who is the editor at a gaming magazine, and then a journalist called Simon Byron. They based it on the two concepts. Good name. They based it on two concepts: dogging and bluejacking that were popular at the time. Now, I know you know about dogging. We all know that you know a great deal about dogging.
Well.
Following our task forays into learning about it. I should say.
Bluejacking. I'm assuming this
is familiar with bluejacking?
I'm assuming it's a portmanteau of Bluetooth and hijacking.
It is indeed, yeah.
What's the idea?
I did some bluejacking back in the day. I have to say
that you jump into somebody's Bluetooth and have sex
jack
with
off.
them?
No, the idea was of toothing or of bluejacking.
Bluejacking
was just the fact that
you mean Bluetooth. I know I'm not great, but come on.
No, with bluejacking, it was just like there were some apps that if you got someone to like accept a file send or something, like some Bluetooth request, it actually gave you access to like control their phone. I used to have a little thing on my phone that let you do it, and then the only thing you could do is turn a person's torch on and off. So you could just have someone.
Worth it.
It was very funny. Like if someone would have their phone on the table and you just start flashing the torch and they get confiscated.
I'm pretty sure it was just a really popular Reddit thing, but like there was always a thing about like what's a harmless prank. But one that I always, whenever I read someone say it, like I thought if someone did that to me, like I would lose my mind. Was one about like installing something on the computer but just make the disk tray open.
I used to do that, yeah.
Yeah, that
it was really good.
The sort of thing that I would fucking kick off.
Yeah, we had a whole one of the computer rooms in our secondary school. We ran a thing that did that, and they were all like out of sync with each other. So like as one closed, another four opened. It was really good. They had to like reboot them all, I think. So yeah, basically they started this forum, this March 2004, cast your mind back, where these two guys between them just must have spent a weekend banging out all of these like fake posts from people in this fictional toothing community about how much they like toothing, which let's remind ourselves is a mixture of dogging and bluejacking.
And so but again, like what was it supposed to be?
It's basically well, let me describe it to you. Toothing was conceived as a merger of the two concepts, dogging with bluejacking.
Right, yeah.
Both of which were frequently mentioned in the UK media around that time. And then I really like this on the Wikipedia page. There's a big diversion just about the history of Bluetooth. It's like, devised by Swedish telecommunication company Ericsson, Bluetooth is an open wireless protocol for exchanging data. Originally, Bluetooth was only intended for wireless exchanging of files between devices, but it was later discovered it could also be used for sexual intentions.
And sexual intentions alone. File sharing and fucking, those are the only two things that you can do. It's really good.
And so the concept was that over Bluetooth, people were arranging like quick, no strings attached, dogging sessions, basically, without the car. Well, they never said it was a problem. They just created the idea that it was like endemic in society, and people bought this big time.
Everyone's doing it.
BBC News ran it. The Guardian ran it. The Independent ran it. Wired ran it. Like it had traction in a big way. Byron said that he and Curran were, quote, idly messaging about the Stan Collymore dogging scandal and how this stupid sexual buzzword had apparently come from nowhere when they came up with the concept. Quote, we wondered if we could create our own. We wonder a lot of things and rarely push them past concept because we're as collectively creative as we are frustratingly idle. This particular concept was simple enough to outstrip the temptations of grinning.
Isaac,
yeah?
What? Is this us? Like...
I mean, it does sound like it. Yeah, it does. Like, it's got big tense energy.
We've because what I'm saying is that thus far we've not got any of your horrid buzzwords onto the BBC News. Is it time to start pushing? It might be.
I didn't realise. Yeah, we've got to push. We've got to push harder, push further. I like this bit. He says this particular concept was simple enough to outstrip the temptations of grinning, saying yeah, and wandering off to see what was on TV. Then it just says, several newspapers have since compared toothing to dogging, which is such a good, weird sentence. In toothing, comma, also a great clause.
Yeah,
a Bluetooth device is used to find other Bluetooth-enabled devices within a close distance, on trains or buses, for example, and then send the expression toothing, question mark, as an initial greeting, letting the person with the enabled Bluetooth device know you are looking for sex. But now I know what you're thinking.
And to be fair, if we're talking about the parallels with this and dogging, this is sort of the same as rolling down your window.
Yeah, if some specific amount. It means, if you roll it 2/3, it means like one specific thing.
You have to offer touching.
If one big problem you probably identify, because I know you're a kind of opportunities guy, is like, hang on, what if the sending of text messages via Bluetooth is not possible? Or don't worry.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's a bit on this, like, what if the person that you send it to, it would be up for that, but they don't know what the word toothing means?
They would know, right? You'd pick it up from context.
No, but because before today, like, if someone had Bluetooth messaged me saying toothing,
no,
I'd assumed they wanted to like bite me,
not true,
or me to bite them.
Picture the scene. You're on the tube. It's 2 a.m. There's one man, and you receive a and it says toothing, and you look up, and he's like,
if I know it's him, I could tell immediately.
Jacking.
If it's him, I could tell immediately that I know that's what he wants.
Yeah.
Well, I was assuming more that like I'm on the bus. It could be any one of like 15 people.
I think they'll make themselves known. I think I
with a
I'm
not
Darren Brown or anything,
with a slow motion wink to camera.
That I could look around a room of people in which one of them has sent the message toothing ? And with 100% accuracy every time point to which pervert.
Isaac, are you going to mentalize?
Yeah, the room? This is my new show. It's quite a limited concept.
Not a new show. It's a rip-off of an old show
with a new toothing angle. So if the sending of text messages is not possible, the Bluetooth name of the phone itself can be set to toothing ? Or something else to indicate interest.
And what contact do you make then?
I guess then people are just sort of pleased to know that you're in the vicinity.
Hoping someone is looking to connect to random Bluetooth devices.
Someone pointing at their molars.
And is also in the mood for fucking.
Now, there's a funny sort of plot to this whole thing, which I'm largely ignoring because it sounds like bullshit to me, where they say that like the point of this hoax was to, see, quote, highlight how journalists are happy to believe something is true without necessarily checking the facts.
I mean, like 100%
they are, but I just think this is funnier than it is.
You don't need to invent toothing to prove that. You can just look at the news. Yeah.
Very true. The concept of toothing quickly reached a large audience, even in countries outside of the UK. This is a really enigmatic part here. One of the hoaxers made an appearance on BBC Radio 5 Live, and a member of the Parliament of the United Kingdom reportedly declared his interest in toothing as a way of meeting women. And there is no source for who that is.
What year was this?
2004.
It was Lembit Opik.
We legally cannot claim this, but it could be.
My fun joke about this is that I think it would be funny to assume it was Lembit Opik.
Yeah, that would be funny to imagine.
How else does he meet a cheeky girl?
Are you saying that they met potentially via toothing?
We don't know that they didn't.
Did the cheeky girls have Bluetooth? Was that their thing?
They must have done. I assume they're early adopters.
I guess they probably were. They're probably sending polyphonic versions of all their songs to people.
I was thinking about this because somebody gifted the history department at the school I work at a copy of the edition of the Times that came out the day after 9/11.
Wow.
Which was super cool to look through. Well, it was about something else.
Two things sweeps the nation.
But there were lots of things in it, and one of them was an ad kind of about 2/3 of the way through that took out maybe a fifth of the page at the bottom.
Yeah,
there was it was like the news, but to your phone, and it was like if you text this number, you can get one headline per £4. And I was just thinking wow, remember how on the television they used to advertise and you could pay for a ringtone.
Yeah.
And now
really fell off, didn't it?
If I hear my phone,
I throw it at the wall. Yeah, get furious.
What's going on?
Here is an extract from the BBC, what they wrote in their article. I'm going to give it in sort of BBC voice. One practitioner is John, a toother living near London. One morning I received an anonymous text message via Bluetooth, he told BBC News. I didn't understand what had happened, but that evening I did some research and worked out how to send my own. Research is such a funny word. The pair started to exchange messages on a train station platform. It's like that fucking Noel Coward Brief Encounters situation. Messages which got gradually more flirty. Imagine this being a BBC News article. Eventually, she asked me if I fancied a quickie in the toilets at the station we were travelling to. It happened. It happened, but I never saw her again.
It turns out she did.
I just love the sort of defensiveness of saying, yeah, no, it definitely happened. We fucked in the station, but we did tooth.
If you wanted to know where she was now, you couldn't find out.
Since that day, John, who claims to have had toothing success 5 times, has set up a website dedicated to the practice. Practice is an amazing word, but he admits it takes a degree of perseverance. Amazing. Also, really uncomfortably, they always capitalize toothing.
No.
It's capital T-U-thing, like it's a concept in a Dickens book, like truth. So they admitted eventually there was a hoax.
Just imagine for a second,
mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it did, but if this hoax had gone just one step further, just imagine, as I think you probably were, given the voice you were doing there, just imagine Moira Stewart having to
sully herself to talk about toothing. God, that would be a real shame. So they eventually came clean, and they, when announcing the hoax, Curran and Byron reassured that toothing was nothing more than a practical joke gone too far. And despite all the articles, quote, no one has ever toothed. 100%.
You can't. No, hang on. They can't know that.
You're right. And
outside of maybe the people they can say for sure that the tooths that they arranged, the fake tooths they arranged, didn't happen. But you can't know.
Copycat.
Maybe
toothing.
I've been toothing all along.
Oh, anything you'd like to admit?
I haven't. I have not, and you couldn't prove it. Yeah. And no jury would convict.
Shanna Peterson, a sexologist, disagreed with the hoaxer's statement that no one has ever toothed.
I'm just going to throw it in
phrase
here.
Sexologist.
And I hate all of them.
They do often have a kind of weird vibe about them.
It's not normal.
It's like I like to watch.
It's one of those things that I think, it's good that people are thinking about it, but you shouldn't be thinking about it too much.
It's simple. Doesn't take a lot of guts, and rejection is nowhere as personal. Of course it's popular. Show people a new way through which they have a chance to have more sex, and they'll do it.
Doesn't take a lot of guts.
No matter how much effort goes into it or how meager the results. And then, it's a weird situation where they clearly thought they'd started it as a fictional hoax thing, but they've sort of manifested it. They lathed it into existence. Multiple forums sprung up throughout Europe, Asia, and America within months of the original toothing posts. People signed up to the forums looking for good locations in their area to tooth and to share their toothing stories with other members. It's so good. And this is wild.
But it is another thing that I like about all of this. It was a thing that I found really fascinating about the very, I gotta say, very extensive research that you did into dogging for our
I did.
Is that a lot of these things, the aspect of it that I find most fascinating is that a large proportion of the interest or the enjoyment seems to be from finding forums where you can share your experiences of having done this.
Because it's like when you share, you experience it again.
It's less about fucking an old woman
in
after a car boot sale
in a Ford
Fiat. As it does, like, telling a bunch
cars.
of people online that, like, yeah, under the name kind of like Gizmotor 42, saying like, yeah, I fucked an old woman because I met her on the Bluetooth.
Because we toothed ourselves silly on the lay-by on the A37. Yeah, is that the one by the little? Yeah, it is the one by the little chef.
Yeah.
They will
close down now, but that building serves an important purpose.
That was a toothless paradise back in the day. Such was the cultural reach of toothing that it was referenced in a whole episode of CSI Miami called Killer Date that aired a full year after this happened.
David Caruso taking off his sunglasses looks like she got toothed by this wolf.
One tooth too far. It's amazing. University of Amsterdam sociologist Albert Benschop researched the hoax. He said toothing is, quote, the next logical step in dating, and that the old game is just adapting to new times.
What was his previous understanding of dating? He thought the next logical step was just using an underused aspect of phone functionality to contact random people on public transport to ask if they wanted to dick down.
It's especially funny given that like a full half of the interactions are just renaming your phone to toothing question mark and hoping for the best.
Crossing your fingers, yeah.
You may as well just wear a t-shirt that's advertising your interest.
I will say that like toothing is next to indistinguishable from any interaction on Grindr.
Oh, really?
Like there does seem to be like there's just the weirdest. I don't know how many of our listeners would have seen, but I tweeted not that long ago about I opened up Grindr and I had a message from a guy who'd never ever spoken to me before. It was the very first message he sent me. And the message he sent was, hey, I've got a top. That's a guy who does the fucking, for people who don't know, who wants to fuck me, but can't host, only travels. I can't host. Could I use your house to get fucked?
Wow. Sorry, can I just confirm, was that the wording, to get fucked?
Yeah. It was. To be fair, I don't even think that he said, I think he literally just said, like, could we use your flat? Like, could we use your
did he offer, like, money? Like,
no, he offered nothing. And I just said, lol.
Yeah.
And he said,
lol, do you know how much rent is?
He said, haha, you're close. And I said...
Oh, yeah, because it's like GPS.
And I said, what did you think was going to be the case? Like,
request.
You think I was going to just... What do you think was going to happen? I was just going to let you in so that you can get fucked by some guy in my house while I, sit and watch TV and, like, bring you a cuppa or,
watch the CSI Miami episode.
And he said... And he went, well, if you feel like that, you can join in.
Well, if you're going to be a little bitch about it.
Thanks. Like, wow. Well, I feel honoured.
You can change your phone name to Toothing or something.
Yeah. Just like truly.
It's the next logical step.
The best, I don't think I've ever said this on the show, and it's worth bringing up now, is that the best version of this that I've ever had, that I can imagine probably is an attitude that translates to toothers, I would imagine. I've never met any, but...
well, you don't know that. They walk amongst us.
I never met any open, loud and proud.
They're a clandestine bunch.
But it's like really early on in my days of using Grindr, and I got messaged by a guy, and his opening gambit, his first message to me said, "Come round to my house and stand on my head while wearing your trainers."
Wow.
And I said, what would I get out of this? And he said, pleasure. And I said,
it's presumptuous.
I don't find that pleasurable. And he said, then stop wasting my time.
Wow. This is an efficient man. He's got one thing on the mind.
Truly, like an amazing, like, there were 7 messages sent in this conversation, and 4 of them were yours. Like,
stop fucking me about, mate. Right. Are the trainers on or not?
Except, I'm so sorry. They're in the wash. There's nothing I could do. Love to help.
Ben Shop added that toothing is, quote, just like picking up people in bars, but without the silly, time-consuming conventions of decorum that people are obliged to keep to these days. This is much more direct. You both know what you want. So he did kind of like, he is connecting like the old world of dating with the new world of dating apps. Like, in a way, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
He also sees it as a way for people to satisfy the need for intimacy. As long as it helps people out of loneliness and gives them more to enjoy in life, I think it's a very good development. So Ben Shop really the lone, like, voice of the positive aspects of toothing. The last thing to say about the topic is just this very short quote from the University of Bath psychologist Linda Blair, not probably the same one, I assume, unless she really pivoted. Yes. And she just has like this quote I just included because it has such it's a lot like the tweet we were just talking about Boss Baby, where like she clearly has like one drum that she bangs and spends her life, this is a big presumption, but it's what it sounds like, connecting any issue to that particular like bugbear.
Yeah.
And it's got this funny kind of like I don't know, Linda, but this quote has this really funny like reactionary quality to it about toothing. It's very short. She said the practice of toothing is down to the human need to take risks. I think we protect ourselves too much in modern society these days, and risk is a human need. We need motivation, and toothing provides it. What are you going to do?
Like, who's that aimed at?
I don't know.
What's who going to do? What's the interviewer going to do? They weren't doing anything. They were just asking a question.
Just like the fact that you would take toothing discourse to say like, oh, kids should play outside more.
It's so
we're
funny.
Coddling our participation trophies.
She likens toothing to like Jackass.
Yeah.
Like, I'm Johnny Knoxville, and this is toothing.
Here we go.
Just a very quiet, silent scene of him changing his Bluetooth name.
So there we go. That's toothing, and that's the kind of fun dive into the past and the future and the internet and the world that you can expect on TAS. I think we've got one more content nugget before we're out of here.
It was a very small thing that I got sent by my friend and flatmate Mark.
Oh yeah, don't know.
Which I'd somehow managed to miss because there's the thing about when you go on Twitter.
Yeah. Loads of tweets.
So many tweets.
Yeah.
There's loads, and it's very difficult to read them all. You don't always have time, even if you have disgustingly high kind of screen time as I do. But this one, he said to me, and it's like I don't really know what avenues Mark uses to access the internet because he doesn't have any social media.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I always wonder how Mark knows about stuff.
Yeah, well, me too. And so whenever he says like, "Oh, did you see this?" and specifically, "Did you see the tweet?" I'm always like,
"Where did he find it?"
But he said, "Did you see the tweet about Jack Nicholson being a nudist?"
Oh, right.
And I had not.
Me neither.
So he sent it to me. And it's a screenshot from an interview that he did with Playboy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much in it. It's a very short, it's a very brief kind of like couple of quotes.
Mm-hmm.
There's just one real like back and forth, but there's so much in it that I just find fascinating that I thought I'd bring it along and see what you thought.
And maybe it's like, they do that Radio 4 thing where it's like the thought of the day. Like
this is sort of thought of the day.
We might not have all the answers to this quote, but maybe the listeners can meditate on it and send us some emails.
And they could think, what are their thoughts on?
Yeah. Do they agree? Pros and cons? Like,
are they on board? Yeah. Are they not?
That's really good. That's interactive.
Yeah. So it starts with a quote from Jack Nicholson. I once decided I would get over being self-conscious about nudity, so I did an experiment. I decided to wear nothing. I lived here in my house as a nudist. It was summertime, so warmth wasn't a problem.
Nice.
It's good to get the practical aspect out of the way first, right?
It's practical Jack, we call him.
I did it for 3 or so months in the 60s.
Wow.
Once I decide something, I don't do it partially. So when I did this, I was nude no matter who came by.
That feels like it could be problematic.
The Playboy interviewer said, who did come by? Jack Nicholson says, all kinds of people, full stop. Roger Corman came by and didn't like it much.
I don't know who that is.
Now, Roger Corman is a director who was, and I didn't know who he was either. He has been called, quote, the Pope of pop cinema.
Wow.
He directed The Little Shop of Horrors and The Pit and the Pendulum and House of Usher, like lots of stuff. Lots of Edgar Allan Poe makes, seemingly. Yeah. But it's one of my favorite things that people do where he said all kinds of people. Roger Corman came by and didn't like it much, but he doesn't then mention anyone else. Like Roger Corman's the only person. He came by and he hated it. Like I said, lots of people. I wasn't throwing my wang around or anything, but it startled him nonetheless.
Throwing it around.
And then
detachable.
And then I think one of the more troubling things.
Boomerang.
No.
Carry on.
You're going to have to edit that out.
We'll get past it.
My daughters understandably didn't like it.
Oh.
Which, now, I didn't realise when he started this that was...
No, like he's buried the lead there.
If I had an interview with you, I would have done it nude. I found it very comfortable. Playboy, did some visitors embrace it? Did some join you? And this is the end of the interview.
Playboy's so horny.
Which I think is the best part. Jack Nicholson... Harry Dean Stanton loved it. He couldn't wait to get over and be nude.
Wow. Real.
Which is like... It's
a proto-toother.
Yeah, it's one thing to have someone who like was into it or like didn't mind when they came over and you were nude. And another person who was like ringing you like, yeah, is it... Could I just come over?
Does Harry Dean Stanton know he can be nude?
He could be nude wherever.
I guess if you had the choice to be naked at home by yourself or with Jack Nicholson, Hollywood icon.
He can only be naked if Jack Nicholson is watching and is also naked himself as well.
Wow. Well, that is a lot to think about.
There's a lot to take away there.
And thus endeth the lesson. And with it, the episode. And what an episode it's been. We've covered Declan's death. Not quite death. We've covered two things. A brand new phenomenon sweeping the nation. Start early, start soon, start often. And we've covered Jack Nicholson's proclivities. When was this? Was it recently?
That was the 60s. Time ago. It was the 60s.
Oh, yeah. I guess they were all...
Everyone was doing it in the 60s.
Yeah.
Weird to think, that was 60 odd years ago. So
yeah, best not to think about things like time. This is... Perhaps if you're a new listener who's stumbled upon this, well, that's odd. I don't know how you did that. Congratulations and welcome.
Very well done.
This is a little taste of the variety. Some shows focus on one thing, and I tell you what, they do a lot better for it. But we cast our net so broad as to be almost impossible to determine what is and is not our remit. And boy, does it cause branding issues, but we soldier on nonetheless.
That's our commitment to you.
Yeah, absolutely. To keep on soldiering every 3 months or thereabouts. No. We're going to try our best to keep it going on the reg.
No. We're
going to do it. This is big Yoda energy. Do or do not do. There is no try. Famously said that little green goblin, Yoda. And like that shriveled old frog, we're going to do and not try. We're not going to try. We're just going to do. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And what we'll be doing more specifically than that is an episode of Big Bad Books next week and then an episode of That's a Shame the week after, just to remind you of that schedule. But in the meantime, we do a lot of other content that you might like to check out. And it's hosted on a big platform that Daddy Jeff owns called twitch.tv, specifically /Shame City. Why don't you just give people a little lowdown of what's going on over there? What can they expect? And when can they expect it?
Streaming. It's the streaming of games, of fun, of frolicking, of a cyber nature that takes place over there. And it takes place for us specifically on a Monday to a Thursday from about 9 p.m. until about 11 p.m.
Sometimes longer if I'm feeling generous.
Generously there. It could be earlier or later in either regard.
And it's very good, isn't it?
Oh, it's so good.
We have a great time. We have a whale of a time on there. I was streaming. I finished a whole game in one stream about an old lady farmer who didn't have enough time to farm, and then she died. And that was the end.
No.
First our goat died, then our baby goat died, then a wolf made off with all our chickens, and then she collapsed.
Can I just ask, was that supposed to happen, or were you just not very good?
I don't know how many endings there are, but it didn't seem like there was much I could do.
You're a pro gamer, so if
it's like The Sims, they always die. It's a one ending situation. The kids get taken by social services because they never go to school on time.
They're always get sent to themselves on the bus.
and then the dad sets himself on fire with the cooker, and the mum can just watch because her like first aid skill is not high enough.
Yeah, it's not
just
right.
flailing.
And you don't. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. You don't want to get involved if you only know sort of half.
Exactly, because you can make it worse. You can make it worse. Leave it to the experts, even if they're post-mortem in their arrival. So that's over at twitch.tv/ShameCity, Monday, Thursday, 9 p.m. UTC. Or you can go shame.city/Twitch if for some reason that's easier for your little mind to store. We've got, as well, if you wanted to keep track of like when this shit's happening, a lovely Discord server. Oh, the atmosphere in there is delightful.
There's some wonderful people in there. Much better than us.
Folk.
Much
nicer.
Than us.
Much friendlier, kindlier, much less liable to tooth in some of their cases.
Oh, definitely.
And that's over at shame.city/Discord. If you don't know what Discord is, well, welcome to 2022. It's where we all chat now. Remember Skype? Remember MSN? No more. It's Discord. That's Discord.
I had someone in my life use the word Skype, the verb Skype, to mean Zoom the other day. Like, we'll just Skype it, and I was like,
nah,
what are you?
They're old. That
What's
person
happening? No, but this is it. They weren't.
But the thing is, they might not look it, but they're old in their core. They've got old bones.
They're Benjamin Buttoning.
Yeah. If you'd like to share this show with anyone, and you may notice a certain tentative quality in my voice because I truly can't imagine why that would be the case or who is our target audience here. But
we're not
if
here
you know
to
a
shame.
couple of freaks, then shame.city, shame.city/TAS will link them to all the stuff to do with this show, TAS, or shame.city/books, I think, for the Big Bad Books feed. And if you haven't checked out Big Bad Books, you've got 1 week before we carry on there, so you can catch up with Ready Player 2. It's been quite a journey so far. That's a good show. There's no two ways about it.
No, that one's really good. This one, take it or leave.
This one's, we wouldn't be mad if you hated this show.
We've no longer. We've told our families we've stopped doing this one.
Yeah. Deleted my mum from the Patreon. That's about all, isn't it? We've got some Twitters, I suppose, but I never use them.
What is it? Shame City Gang. Yeah, that's probably the best one to go to. And of course, as ever, if you are truly mentally ill and you want to give us any money, you can go to patreon.com/ShameCity. And at some point, you'll be able to do that again because we'll have stopped being ashamed of the lack of content we offered and opened it up again.
Yeah, we're doing our annual retooling of the Patreon to make it a bit more inclusive of our other works, because we contain multitudes, I think it's fair to say. The Patreon was only reflecting TAS. We want to make it Big Bad Books, streaming, Declan's new Toothing documentary series on the World Service. Finally, gang, word of mouth. It's back, and it is still the best of mouth. I've checked with my sources. So if there is anyone you'd like to spread the good news of Shame City 2, then by all means.
Don't be ashamed.
Don't be ashamed.
Don't be ashamed.
Until the next episode, which will be in 2 weeks for TAS or 1 week for BBB. I've been Isaac. You've been...
I've been Declan.
Tooth 'em up a storm, gang.
Oh, it's good to be back.
Bye.
Bye.
The bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder, my new home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you.